Hey everyone! Alright, so I know that you have been waiting for this update and it has taken me so long to do it, and I really do apologize, but I am pregnant. Everything is still going great with this pregnancy, just to kind of not leave you in suspense, but I was really sick at the beginning, and I'm only actually just starting to feel better and more like myself. So anyways, I'm gonna be filming a bunch today, so hopefully I'll be able to get out a few videos to kind of update you on how we got here and how we're doing now that we are here. So this video is going to be how we got here. It's going to be my IVF journey story. So this is going to be chatty. I'm just warning you now. So go get yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, a little snack, and I will let you know exactly how we got here. So I don't think it's a secret to say that I want lots of children, and I really didn't want Ewan to be an only child. I'm an only child, and I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with being an only child. It's just, now that I'm older, I really feel like I'm missing out on the experience of having siblings. And I do have a large extended family, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Every, family unit is very much kind of together, and I am by myself. Although I am close with my other family members, it's not the same. So I don't want that for my children, and they could grow up and hate each other. I doubt it. Oh, I hope not. But nonetheless, I really wanted to create the large family that I didn't get to experience growing up. So when Ewan was about, I don't know, he was probably a year, I'm not sure exactly, between a year to a year and a half. We stopped really caring about having another baby when he was like 10 months old. But from about a year and a half, we really started trying to conceive again. And nothing happened. And our plan was to just try to conceive, and then in maybe end of the year 2016, we would, or even 2015, we were going to look into fertility treatments. My husband works a good paying job, and it allows me to stay home with Ewan, and it does, luckily for us, it helps. If my husband didn't have the job that he has, we wouldn't be able to afford to do these treatments. So, oh, Sika, oh, sorry about that. The cat almost knocked the tripod over. Anyways, so we knew that we didn't want to try for too long because we didn't want Ewan, and we didn't want the gap to be too large. So we knew that we were going to look into fertility treatments if nothing happened, within a certain amount of time, but we really weren't expecting to do treatments as soon as we did. However, I had a conversation with one of my cousins. She's a little older than I am. She's in her early 40s, and she was able to conceive one son naturally, but she never pursued fertility treatments after that and wasn't able to conceive anymore. They did end up adopting a son just last year or the year before, so they have expanded their family in that way. But we got into having a conversation about fertility treatments and having only children, and she wishes that she had pursued fertility treatments not long after her biological son was born. And we just got to talking about finances and how money is always going to be an issue, or it's always going to be something that comes and goes, but family and your family unit is something that will last and transcend forever past money problems and whatnot. So that just kind of really stuck with me. And so later that evening, I talked to Jason, and I really thought that we should look into fertility treatments sooner. So at this point, this was October of last year, 2014, and at that time, Ewan was still breastfeeding, and I just had no desire to stop that, and I knew if I went into fertility treatments I would have to stop breastfeeding. So I was torn. So we got an appointment with our fertility clinic, and we had all of our tests redone. And those of you who are familiar with my story know that we sort of dealt with more of a male factor in fertility. I have a little bit kind of going on. I have some endometriosis, but my husband's sample was never enough to be like, you can't get pregnant, and my issue is never enough to say you can't get pregnant. So it was one of those things that was unexplained. So we went back and had our tests done again. My husband's tests were considerably better. They didn't even recommend that we do any ICSI with IVF. ICSI or ISCI, I can't remember. It's where they actually inject the sperm into the egg. They didn't even recommend they do that because Jason's sample had improved so greatly from when we had our last one done when we were trying before Ewan. So we had all these tests done, and then we thought, okay, when do we want to do this? And at that point, after going through all the tests, I just really didn't want to wait. So we decided that my next cycle, day 1, I was going to call in and we were going to officially try. So I'm kind of like trying to remember exact dates, but what ended up happening is I called in cycle day 1. It was probably, I think it was December 1st. I think that's right. December 1st. And then what happens is 21 days later, you start taking a nasal spray. It's called Superfact. And it's basically to like downregulate your ovaries. This isn't going to be like a, exactly how IVF works, because I'm sure those of you who are watching this are aware of, the ins and outs for the most part. So anyways, I started taking this nasal spray. I think in some parts, you go on birth control for a little while, but here what they do is they give you this nasal spray, kind of quiets your ovaries down, thins your lining, and then you have a period because it's, 21 days into the cycle, so you would have ovulated previous, so you have a period. And then you go in for a down regulation check, make sure the ovaries are quiet, make sure that your lining is thin, and then after that you start taking injectable medications. You take that for a certain number of days. I took it for 10 days, and then on the 11th day I took a trigger shot, and then I went in 36 hours later and they retrieved my eggs that had matured. I had 16 eggs that they were able to retrieve, and 10 of those fertilized, which was really great. And of those 10 that fertilized, 5 of them made it to the optimal stage of a blastocyst stage that they like to see. So what we did was we transferred one embryo rather. The best one, it was graded a 17 out of 20, and they gave me a 70% chance of success, which I thought was pretty freaking great. Going into this, I always kind of thought that IVF was going to be like our savior. I'd never thought that it wouldn't work, and the cycle did not work. There was no explanation as to why. Everything was looking really great. Like I said, they gave me a 70% chance when, a lot of women, especially if you're older, your success rate is probably around like between 30 and 50%. It just depends on the situation. So I was pretty shocked and very upset that it didn't work, to say the least. I was devastated, because that possibility didn't cross my mind. I should have braced myself, but anyways, it didn't work. So that was end of January. I think by the time everything was finished, all the injectable medications, and then by the time I actually found out if the cycle had worked, it was about the end of January, maybe beginning of February. And so luckily for me is that I had those 5 and I used 1, so I had 4 embryos that we were able to freeze that were of good quality. And so we knew that we wanted to go ahead and do a frozen embryo transfer. So I had to wait 3 cycles before I could call in a cycle day 1 again. So those 3 cycles were unbelievably long and frustrating because I just wanted to, like, once you get something in your mind, you just kind of want to go for it. So yeah, waited the 3 cycles and then called in cycle day 1 again. I had to do the nasal spray again to downregulate my ovaries and my uterus, like make sure the lining is nice and thin. And this time I didn't have to take injectable medications because they weren't stimulating my ovaries. They're just wanting to prepare my lining and make sure that it was nice and thick. So instead of the injectables that I did last time, I had to take estrogen, and every 5 days they would up it, was 1 pill, and then 5 days later 3 pills. And then they thawed 1 egg, and then they transferred that egg in, and 4 days after transfer, at about 5 o'clock in the evening, I got a positive pregnancy test, and it was the faintest line that I ever did see. It was so faint that when I later showed, Jason and my parents, the test, they were like, there's a line there, like they could barely see it, but it was on a first response, so I trusted it, and I was over the moon. So excited and relieved because, IVF brings its own kind of set of stresses because it's very expensive. Sorry, loud car going by. Yeah, it's very expensive, and that pressure on your shoulders of like, if this doesn't work, we just wasted a bunch of money. And anyway, so I felt like a huge sense of relief and was very excited. However, excitement gave way to fear and caution because I started spotting. The second I started spotting, I immediately just freaked out and thought for sure I was losing it because I never had any spotting with Ewan at all. So, and as soon as you see red down there, when you think you're pregnant, automatically you think I'm losing the baby. So I was hysterically crying, like full body convulsing, crying, hysterical, just inconsolable. And Jason was away and I was by myself, and it was really terrible. So I kept on testing, but the lines kept getting darker. I thought, well, this is just a fluke, I don't know why the lines are still getting darker because I'm spotting, and the spotting wasn't like heavy, but it was red. And so I was like, that's just not right. So I went to my family doctor. I wasn't supposed to have my beta done through the fertility clinic until 16 days past the transfer. And so I found out I was pregnant 4 days past transfer, so I had a while to go. So I went to my family doctor. They did a beta draw for me there. And what was my initial number? I think it was 150, something like that. And since that was low, they wanted me to go back again. And since I was spotting, they wanted me to go back in a few days and check it again. And so the next time I went back, I think it was 6 days later. Yeah, it was almost a week later, which was just horrendous because I was spotting that whole time. It wasn't ever becoming like full flow or anything, but it was, pretty continuous spotting, and I was just like freaking out. So they did it again, and I'm trying to remember my numbers, but I think it was 3,000 and some, and it, I was hoping that it was going to be like 500 or something like that, and or anything more than 500 would have been like the 72-hour, you know, doubling time. So I was like, anything more than that is great. So it was over 3,000. And then 2 days after that, I had my beta with my fertility clinic, and it was over 10,000. So everything was going great. The spotting, seemed to just be, you know, one of those things. Sometimes women spot, and I found out afterwards that spotting with IVF is incredibly common. So I was very, you know, I was starting to get more comfortable. And then 7 weeks, 2 days, I went to my fertility clinic, and we had an ultrasound. It was a little bit early. They like to do it at 8 weeks, but I convinced them to take me in a little bit earlier because my husband wasn't going to be home when I was 8 weeks, so I really wanted him to be there in case something bad happened, because I was like I was convincing myself like there wasn't going to be a baby there, it was going to be an empty sac, and I was thinking all these things, and so they warned me in advance that since it was so early they may not see a heartbeat, and so they kind of turned the screen a little bit away from me while they first looked, and it was a vaginal ultrasound, and so I'm like just like waiting, and then it was like 10 or 20 seconds after they started that they're like, yep, there's the fetal heartbeat, and then they turned the screen so that I could see, and sure enough, baby was fine. Just the one baby, egg didn't split, and baby was doing really great and looked perfect. It was actually measuring a couple days ahead at 7 weeks, 2 days, so relief. Like, oh my goodness, I just couldn't believe it. Finally, it worked. I mean, some people go through IVF and it's, you know, multiple attempts. Luckily, you know, we did the one full IVF cycle, and we were so incredibly lucky and fortunate to be able to have some embryos left over to freeze, and then one of those took. So we still have 3 more embryos in the freezer that in the future we will be attempting to bring earthside, but you know, that's a conversation for another day. But that in a nutshell is the journey. A little bit sooner than we figured, but we're so incredibly happy and just thankful that we are pregnant. I am 16 weeks today, so and baby is doing great. We've had ultrasounds since 7 weeks. And I've had 2 ultrasounds since then, and baby looks great and is measuring ahead. I think if this wasn't an IVF baby, they would be thinking that my dates were wrong, but since it's IVF, we know exactly the date, exactly how old this baby is, and baby's measuring big. So that is how we got here. If you have any questions about the IVF process, I had all kinds of footage of the journey. I have footage from my retrieval. I have footage from like after every ultrasound. If you guys are interested in seeing that a little bit more in depth rather than just this overall, you know, this is what happened, then let me know. I can edit that footage together. I'd be happy to share if you guys were interested. But other than that, that's it for this video. Right now, I'm going to stop this video, and then I'm going to start another video letting you know how this pregnancy is going. You know, what has happened? Was I sick? I said I was already sick. But, you know, different things that's been happening in this pregnancy, I'm going to let you guys know. And then, yeah, hopefully I'll be able to update a little bit more regularly. But I love you guys so much. Thank you for your patience. And, yeah, any questions, let me know, and I will talk to you later. Bye!